Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of Yonaguni Monument, Japan's underwater pyramid that rewrites prehistory. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction. Not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. In 1986, dive instructor Kihachiro Aratake was exploring the waters off Yonaguni Island, Japan's westernmost territory, when he found something that stopped him cold: a massive stepped pyramid structure sitting 27 meters below the surface. Its terraces were flat, its angles were sharp, its corners were close to right angles. It did not look like the seafloor, it looked like something built. The Yonaguni Monument is 150 meters wide and 40 meters tall. The nearest land around it was above sea level roughly 10,000 years ago, before post-glacial flooding raised the Pacific. If any part of it is man-made, it predates every known civilization on Earth. That is not a fringe claim, it is the straightforward implication of the geology. Professor Masaaki Kimura of the University of the Ryukyus spent decades diving the structure and cataloging what he believes are carved features, roads, and tool marks. Geologist Robert Schoch, who authenticated the age of the Sphinx's water erosion, dived the same structure and concluded it is entirely natural. Two credentialed scientists, the same underwater site, opposite conclusions. Who is right? This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the broader phenomenon of lost civilizations, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. What separates a civilization from a collection of villages? Not technology alone, but organization, the capacity to coordinate thousands of people toward shared goals, to store and transmit knowledge across generations, to build institutions that outlast individuals. These are the hallmarks archaeologists look for when they define a civilization. And for most of the 20th century, the oldest examples they could identify dated to around 3,500 BC in Mesopotamia and Egypt. But that benchmark has been steadily eroding. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, discovered in the 1990s and excavated since, consists of massive stone circles with elaborately carved pillars depicting animals, abstract symbols, and human figures. It dates to at least 10,000 BC, roughly 6,000 years before Stonehenge, and older than the invention of pottery or agriculture in the conventional sequence. Someone built it. Someone organized the quarrying, transport, and precise placement of limestone pillars weighing up to 20 tons. Someone knew what they were building and why. That level of coordinated effort implies a society more complex than any model of 10,000 BC predicted. Göbekli Tepe is not alone. Every few years, a new site expands the timeline further. Ancient stone structures in Indonesia have been dated to 25,000 years ago. Complex astronomical alignments have been found at sites in Africa predating Egypt by millennia. The human story is older, richer, and more turbulent than the standard narrative allows. When we look at lost civilizations, we are not chasing fantasy. We are attempting to recover chapters of a history far longer than any currently recognized textbook will tell. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter, the core evidence surrounding Yonaguni Monument. Japan's underwater pyramid that rewrites prehistory is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. The Yonaguni Monument was first documented in 1986 by dive instructor Kihachiro Aratake off the southern coast of Yonaguni Island, Okinawa Prefecture, Japan. It sits at a depth of 5 to 27 meters and measures approximately 150 meters east-west by 40 meters north-south, with a maximum height of around 27 meters, comparable to a 9-story building. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes, but as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the structure's main platform features flat terraced surfaces, near vertical faces, and what appear to be right-angle corners. Several researchers have noted twin pillars, a triangular depression, a stone column, and features interpreted as a road or causeway running along the base. The regularity of these features is the core of the man-made versus natural debate. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this. And that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. Professor Masaaki Kimura of the University of the Ryukyus began systematic study of the monument in the late 1980s and logged more than 100 dives on the structure over 3 decades. He identified features he classifies as carved markings, post holes, and a star-shaped platform, and proposed the structure dates to at least 8000 BC, when the site was above sea level. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation, but the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, geologist Robert Schoch of Boston University, known for his work redating the Sphinx enclosure at Giza based on water erosion patterns, dived the Yonaguni structure in the late 1990s. He concluded the formation is natural sandstone shaped by wave action, tectonic fracturing along natural joint planes, and the particular way fine-grained mudstones and sandstones cleave. He noted similar features on adjacent land. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of sea level data for the East China Sea indicates that the Yonaguni site was above sea level approximately 10,000 years ago during the last glacial maximum. If any part of the structure was built or modified by humans at that time, it would predate Sumerian civilization by more than 4,000 years and represent the oldest known monumental construction on Earth. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding: stone tools and what are described as stone tool fragments have been reported in the vicinity of the Yonaguni Monument by Japanese researchers. Additionally, other anomalous underwater features have been identified near Yonaguni and neighboring islands including Karama and Aguni, including what some researchers describe as paved roads and additional structural platforms. though these have received far less scientific documentation. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations, and in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain Yonaguni Monument, Japan's underwater pyramid that rewrites prehistory. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that Masaaki Kimura argues the monument is an artificial structure, built or heavily modified by humans before the site was submerged around 10,000 years ago. He cites tool marks, carved symbols, the star-shaped platform, and the unnaturally straight faces as evidence of intentional construction. Critics note that Kimura has not published his findings in peer-reviewed geological journals and that his identifications of carvings remain unverified. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that Robert Schoch's natural formation hypothesis holds that the monument is an entirely geological feature produced by the fracturing of Miocene sandstone along natural joint plains, combined with wave erosion of the softer mudstone layers between. He points to nearly identical stepped and terraced formations visible on land near the coast of Yonaguni as evidence that the process produces such features without human involvement. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that a third position holds that the monument is a natural formation that was subsequently recognized and modified by early inhabitants, perhaps cleared, leveled, or used as a ceremonial site. This hybrid interpretation acknowledges Schoch's geological framework while leaving room for some human activity. It remains the least developed of the three positions for lack of specific evidence distinguishing natural from modified surfaces. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding Yonaguni Monument, Japan's underwater pyramid that rewrites prehistory, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence, as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes road-like features running parallel to the main monument's base have been documented by multiple divers and interpreted by Kimura as constructed pathways. Schoch counters that flat sandy channels between rock outcrops are a predictable result of differential erosion. The debate illustrates the core methodological problem. Without excavation or datable material in clear stratigraphic context, photographic evidence alone cannot resolve whether a feature is natural or constructed. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented. Stone reported as possibly shaped tools have been collected near the site, though their provenance, context, and identification as tools rather than naturally fractured stone have not been formally published in peer-reviewed literature. Yonaguni Island's bedrock is the same fine-grained sandstone as the monument, meaning natural fracturing can produce pieces that superficially resemble worked stone. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. Question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed similar step and terrace formations are visible in exposed rock faces along the coast of Yonaguni Island above the waterline. Schoch and his colleagues documented these in the late 1990 as the strongest evidence for a natural origin, demonstrating that the same geological processes that formed the monument are actively visible on land without any need for human agency. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Cation skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding Yonaguni Monument, Japan's underwater pyramid that rewrites prehistory. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. The Yonaguni Monument has generated sustained debate since its discovery, but has never been the subject of a formal, funded archaeological excavation. The Japanese government has not classified it as an archaeological site, which would require evidence of human activity, evidence that cannot be confirmed without the excavation. The absence of official status makes unlikely to be funded. Kimura continued publishing and lecturing on his findings until his death, while Schoch's natural explanation remains the dominant position among geologists. The site draws thousands of sport divers annually and has become one of the world's most famous dive destinations. Whatever its origin, the Yonaguni Monument sits at the center of a genuine scientific disagreement that has not been resolved. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of Yonaguni Monument, Japan's underwater pyramid that rewrites prehistory from the historical record. Through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Yonaguni ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process, and the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.